This podcast is a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to find out more. This episode of 20th Century Boy is brought to you by patreon.com/radiomike. Guys, over on the Patreon, there is so much bonus content, and one of my favorite things we're doing at the moment is the Pat and Mike show with me and producer Pat. We've completely revamped the format, so every week we're doing a deep dive on one of the big topics I talk about on this show. Plus, we talk behind the scenes of 20th Century Boy and give our recommendations on the books, movies, games, albums, and TV shows we've been loving. There's a new episode of the Pat and Mike show every week, as well as the TCB Overflow podcast, which is up as soon as you finish listening to this podcast. The Patreon is overflowing with content. We'll see you there.
So they don't know what the jazz is all about, you see?
As featured in the Wall Street Journal podcast and the Kyle and Jackie O show.
Show your move. Good news, everyone. Don't you know diggy when you see onions?
Welcome to 20th Century Boy. My name is Facsimile Millie, and this is the inside of my mind. Oh, welcome back to the show, everyone. Facsimile Millie, because, you know, obviously, new name, different name at the start of every show. Often on an RM theme for my real name, Radio Mike. Well, that's not my real name, but it is for the purposes of this podcast. Facsimile Millie, though, taking the idea of a technology, radio, facsimile, fax, and then a name that rhymes with that, even though Radio Mike doesn't rhyme. But a few weeks ago, I did Telegram Sam. So continuing that trend with Facsimile Millie. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. Welcome to the podcast. This podcast is 20th Century Boy, a podcast by me, Radio Mike, a writer and producer from Melbourne, Australia. Just making his way through life, you know, just wading through all the shit to find some good times every once in a while. But the main thing about this podcast is the conversations you wish you were having, right? It's the conversations you wish you were having with your friends, but you're not, because we're all caught up in these day-to-day discussions of like, hey, how's your day? Yeah, good. How was your weekend? Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Good. How's the kids? Yep, good. We're all caught up in that shit. That we're not having the conversations we want to be having, man. And that's what this podcast is all about. The conversations you want to be having. Questions like, conversations like, you know, what do we think about what the hell is the vibe on the Super Mario Bros. Movie? Why the hell are there so many movie prequels now? Why the hell are people mad that Harry Styles is the new king of pop? Why the hell is everyone so confused about the Buzz Lightyear movie? Conversations you wish you were having, but you're not. Of course, as always, you can support this show over on Patreon, patreon.com/Radio Mike. And hit a big milestone this week, guys. We have 2 new members of the Patreon family. We have Patreon Natasha and Patreon Marty. And guys, news for you. That brings us to the sweet, sweet number of 69 patrons. 69. Yeah, that's right. 69. Now, yes, it would be funny to be on 69 patrons for a while, but I do hope we get to the 70 mark this week. That would be amazing, 70 patrons, but more on that later. I've had a really good week. The first thing I just wanted to quickly do, over the weekend, I went to a gig that one of my mates was doing. His name is Alex Moses. He actually appeared on an interview on this podcast for the Mike Talk series I used to do. He used to be in a band called Columbus, but he has a new band now called Sick Visor. I went to their first gig. They've got this great single that I just wanted to plug at the top. It's called Happy Pessimistic People Person Introvert.
'Cause I'm a happy pessimistic people person introvert. I'm a happy pessimistic people person introvert.
Really good song. So I just wanted to give them a plug because Alex is a great guy and he came on this podcast and he's making really cool music that I think people would be into. So go and check that song out. Aside from that, I've been busy. I've been really busy this week and, just really cramming this in. We recorded the Hamish and Andy pod this week. So yeah, lots of stuff's been happening, but there's a few things this week. There's a lot to get through on today's show, really, and there's a lot that I really need to talk about here. The first thing that caught my attention this week that I really wanted to talk about was I noticed this often on this show. I talk about my favourite show, The Chase Australia, trivia show here in Australia, obviously, because it's called The Chase Australia. I love trivia. I love watching this show. It's like my perfect way to end a work day is to put on this trivia show and just answer trivia questions. I love trivia so much. And saw this really interesting interaction between the host Larry Edmar and a contestant. I've talked about this show in the past, but this isn't related to how I've talked about the show in the past. I just heard this incredible interaction between Larry Edmar and the contestant that I had to share on this podcast because I just thought it was profound how jilting this moment was. And it did feel like in this moment it was I couldn't tell if it was a setup by the writers of the show and the questions or not. Take a listen to this contestant, don't know their name, and this interaction that did happen on the Chase Australia. So basically, just so you know, the host talks to the contestant. They have a little back and forth. Learn, what do you do? What's your middle name? What do you love? And then they launch into the quick fire trivia question cash builder round. And this is what happened on the Chase Australia.
Aliens, love anything to do with space and all that kind of
Do you
thing.
believe that man has walked on the moon?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, I don't. I think that was a conspiracy.
I wish you lots of luck. And your time starts now. The first person to set foot on the moon was US astronaut Neil who?
Armstrong.
Correct.
Aliens.
Okay, so as you heard there, this woman who's a contestant on the show, she's talking to host Larry Edmar, and she's, I love space, I love aliens, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. And then Larry Edmar goes, do you believe man have walked on the moon? No, I don't. It's a conspiracy. First question of her cash building trivia round was who was the first person to walk on the moon, and she immediately answers Neil Armstrong as though it's common knowledge. Here's something for you, contestant. If you really believe that the moon landing was a conspiracy and you stand by that, you wouldn't have answered that question. This is what I don't like about you. You threw in your beliefs, you betrayed your beliefs to win a bit of money on a show. And I don't like that. I think you should have stuck by your guns, right? I think you should have answered the question the way you promised us you would, because it's to me, that cannot be a coincidence, surely, that question was right after she said she was a conspiracy theorist and didn't believe man had walked on the moon. The first question is who was the first person to walk in the moon? She says Neil Armstrong. Stick by your guns, mate. Don't sell out your beliefs for money. Because that's what you do, and that's what you did, and we all saw it on national television, and quite frankly, you look pathetic. Now, I don't trust anything you say because I know that I could swindle you to change your opinion with any amount of money. Shouldn't have sold out your beliefs. Thought that was really funny. I've never seen something quite like that on TV. Someone flat out say, I don't believe that man has walked on the moon. And then when asked the question, who was the first person to walk on the moon, immediately say the correct answer, which is Neil Armstrong. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Because the cognitive dissonance at this point in this person's life must be so jilting. The cognitive dissonance of, okay, I just said on national TV, I don't believe man has walked on the moon. But I guess maybe in her mind, she's like, well, I know that the common belief that they want me to say is Neil Armstrong. I don't believe it, but I'll answer it for money. But I still feel like she sold out her beliefs for money. And that's not good. We don't sell our beliefs out for money. We never, ever do that. But seriously, guys, there's something really important that we need to talk about on this week's show. Because I've realized that we are actually heading towards the dystopian technological future that we've all been warned about for many, many years in various works of fiction and science fiction, right? We're heading towards it. There's currently a new product out that is being advertised a lot on Australian TV, even on YouTube. I'm getting ads for this product, and fascinating product. It's the new Google Pixel phone. Now, my first thoughts on the new Google Pixel phone is, and obviously this isn't sponsored because I don't sell out my beliefs for money and I never would promote this, but my first thought on anyone who has a Google Pixel phone or essentially anyone who has an Android, why do you have an Android? I mean, come on, just get an iPhone, catch up with the rest of the world. If you are watching this or listening to this podcast right now and you own an Android, take a good look at yourself. Why on earth would anyone ever own an Android? Do you know how simple everything is to do on Apple? And believe me, growing up until about 5-6 years ago, I was like a hardcore PC Android guy. I would never use a Mac. I would never use an iPhone. I had a Samsung Galaxy. I had a HP laptop. And you know what? Started working in the real world. Everyone was on Apple and I realized, oh, Apple just is better. Why would you have an Android? I love people who show me their who hand me their Android phone and I'm just like, what do I do? What I don't even understand what this is. I can't figure out what I'm doing with this phone. Is this a phone? I don't know. Like, it's remarkable to me that anyone could make the conscious, voluntary decision to purchase an Android phone and have one. Have you ever heard of AirDrop? Do you know how easy AirDrop is to transfer files across? Just use an iPhone. Just get an iPhone, put your pride aside, and just get an iPhone. Anyone who has an Android phone, just... And here's the other thing, particularly in the dating sphere. Girls, if I'm texting you and I see a green bubble come up in my iPhone messages, I'm instantly turned off. If you're a green bubble texter, which means you're not on iMessage, which in turn means you're not on Apple iPhone, I'm instantly turned off. Get an iPhone, guys. That's not the point of this, but get an iPhone. Use Apple. Non-sponsored, but I am open to collaborating with Apple because their products are amazing. Don't use an Android. It's literally Android. Literally the name itself is the giveaway that you don't want it. How many times have you heard of a good Android? You know? It's just I don't know why people get Android phones, but whatever. Let's just continue. The new Google Pixel phone, whatever that is, I don't care. There's a new feature on it, and it's being heavily advertised. This feature particularly, and I genuinely don't think people realize how damaging and like profoundly game-changing this feature is. It's a good feature, admittedly, for an Android phone, but I don't think people realize how dangerous this feature really is. So I'm just going to play the ad and then I'm going to like probably spiel on this for the next little while. Ready?
One of my favourite things on the Google Pixel is called the Magic Eraser.
All you do is outline what you don't want in the picture, poof, and it's gone.
I've gotten rid of shadows, construction sign,
garbage on the ground, people, ex-lovers,
dog poop.
You just circle them or colour them in.
They're gone.
Don't ask me how it works. It just does, and that's all I know.
I'm Bowser.
I'm Elijah.
I'm Danica, and I have a Google Pixel.
Yeah, so to those people in that ad, don't sound so proud about it, for one. But two, I don't think we're thinking about the implications of this technology. So as you heard, you take a photo, say there's someone in the background of the photo, literally you circle them and they disappear from the photo, and the Google Pixel phone like fills the photo as if that person wasn't there. I don't know how it does it. Technological advancements, we've come very far. It's really cool, and I get why it's a selling point. Like, make your photos look great, take a touristy photo in front of, like, I don't know, the Eiffel Tower, get rid of all the other people, get rid of any cars or whatever it is, right? I get that. But let's just sit and think about this for one moment, because this to me is where we're going from sci-fi dystopias being a fictional thing to now we're genuinely heading to it being a reality. Now, I don't mean to be that guy I don't mean to be that white guy on a podcast who starts talking about 1984 by George Orwell, but in that book, if you haven't read it, it's a great, like, you have to read it. It's a seminal work. in that book, they literally would rewrite the history every day. They would just change everything. The government would literally rewrite everything that happened and, control the narrative and everything like that. Now, think about this. If we're heading to a world in which anyone, literally anybody, can make something disappear from a photo and make the photo look authentic at the palm of their hands. Thankfully, iPhone doesn't seem to have this technology yet, but Google certainly does. What are the implications of that for multiple things, particularly in a legal sense, but in other things as well? Unless there's a very clear way to determine, maybe the file format changes, but if there's a very clear way to determine that photo has been edited, it's actually really concerning. Because now, think of like a lot of modern cases, like for example, like the Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew thing. A lot of the ways that they're kind of cornering Prince Andrew and basically saying, we know you did this, is because there's photographic evidence of him with these women who are accusing him of doing these things. Like, there's evidence that they met, he's with them, there's photos of them. But what if we're getting to this point where anyone can just erase someone from a photo, erase anything from a photo, delete something from a photo? Suddenly, as far as I can see, the entire legal system comes into some jeopardy here. Because now we're moving towards a society in which it's actually starting to become almost impossible to determine what is reality, what's real and what isn't. And I think it's a really interesting thought discussion because, here's an example I thought of that I just found kind of fascinating. This isn't really related to technology, but just as a case study, I don't know all the details of this, I've just read about it. So there was this guy in America who was basically charged with murder. I think he was charged with murder and he proclaimed he was innocent. He said, I didn't do this. And he didn't really have any all the evidence kind of pointed to it being him, but he maintained that he was innocent and he didn't have any proof that it wasn't him. And he had an alibi. His alibi was that he was actually at a baseball game that day. So he couldn't have done it because he was literally at the baseball game, but he couldn't prove that he was there or whatever. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and this is what I mean. Conveniently, the TV show Curb Your Enthusiasm with Larry David was shooting an episode at that exact baseball game. So he went to and he remembered that and went to the producers of the show and said, hey, can I just see all the footage you shot that day? Because I remember walking behind the camera. And if there is footage of me behind that camera or in front of that camera in the background of a shot of this TV show, then I will not go to jail for murder and I will prove that I'm innocent. And he went through it all and the lawyers found him in the background of a shot in Curb Your Enthusiasm, which essentially proved that he could not have murdered this person because he was literally not there. He was at a baseball game. So these kinds of things, like documents and photos and videos and stuff, they're evidence of a reality. But suddenly if we're in this world where anyone can just erase things from reality and delete the original and be like, no, that person was never there, it was just these people, and just circle someone out, that person was never there. It's pretty creepy. It's pretty interesting to think about. And I think there's so many other things, like even in this podcast, if you listen to the audio version of this podcast, if you watch the video, because the video's a bit harder to edit, there's a few things in the audio, like transitional things that you don't hear. But every audio episode I for the last few weeks, I've been putting celebrity endorsements from the show in the middle of the pod. I've had Donald Trump, I've had Alan Rickman, I've had Tobey Maguire, and obviously the way I do that is there's people now developing AI celebrity voices. So you type something in, you can get to varying levels of success an AI celebrity voice saying what you want. So I get all these celebrities to say, I love Radio Mike's podcast, right? And it's fun. And you can sort of tell at this point that they're AI generated, but some of them are pretty good. The thing is, when that technology gets better, and suddenly anyone can kind of make anyone say anything just through text-to-speech AI generation, that also starts sounding a lot of alarms in my mind as to what that means for the future. Now there's also deepfakes where visually you can make it look like someone saying something, and or sound as well. And then there's also like stuff like the DALL-E mini generator, where you type a prompt into an AI art generator and it tries to make that. Admittedly, it's not at the point where it could fool a human into thinking it was real, but it will probably get there. And then what are the implications of me being able to type in this person doing this thing to this other person? What are the implications of that? I just feel really like we are definitely headed into this dystopian future where, and I think it's going to make it really easy for criminals to get away with crimes, because I think now as a defense, you could very easily say, that's a doctored photo, that's a doctored video, that's doctored audio. I didn't do that. Someone has made that. It's fake. It's not me. And on the other hand, it'll become harder to prove that criminals have done things because they can doctor the evidence themselves. So I think suddenly this Google Pixel thing to me has been really alarming, because I don't like as much, like, I guess I was going to say I don't think we should have this technology, but I guess like, well, why not? Like we should. And technology is not going to stop developing, especially if it makes life easier for people. But I really feel like there's going to be a lot of implications for this moving ahead. And we are going to start seeing, I reckon, criminal cases, court cases where there's serious debate about authenticity of photos, documents, videos, audio, and other evidence. And to me, it is somewhat concerning, because all of these tools together are showing how quickly things are changing. As I said, if you can generate a picture of anything you want, you can generate the sound of anyone talking, generate something that Donald Trump said, and someone like Donald Trump knows that these things exist, so he uses them to pretend that things are fake or he didn't say things and stuff. The ultimate defense. I didn't do it. It's technology. It's the future. I didn't do any of that. And then it's just like, as well, you know, do we end up with robots who can impersonate people? In Futurama, which, you know, as much as it's a goofy comedy show, Futurama was a really great satire of science fiction and a dystopian future. There was an episode where you could download a celebrity's personality into a robot and date them. And like, I honestly don't think that was in the year 3000 in Futurama, but I honestly don't think we're that far away. Even with virtual reality getting like further and further ahead, it's so fascinating, but so scary. So I guess the main message of this is don't buy a Google Pixel because you don't need to be deleting shit out of your photos. You don't need to delete people out of your photos. That could, like the Curb Your Enthusiasm analogy, that could save someone from going to jail. I'd really love this week, if you have any thoughts about this, if you're listening to this with thoughts, send them in. RadioMikePod@gmail.com. Tweet about the show. It's Radio Mike. Instagram, radio.mike. Like, I'd love to have a further discussion about this, because to me, it's absolutely fascinating. I should, as always, you can tweet the show. I'd love a bit more interaction on the show on Twitter. Radio Jess tweeted the show. She said, "My son is always singing 'We Wish You a Merry Nomus,'" which is, of course, Nomus is a segment on this show. That was great. And also, Radio Kevin, who I believe must be American, he said, because I was talking about Gumball-orama next week, and this is on Twitter, where we put 20-cent coins into a gumball machine. He said, "This was how I learned Australians have 20-cent coins and not quarters. And now I don't think I can go back to sleep." Yeah, so we don't have I guess a quarter is a 25-cent coin over in America, but we've got a 5-cent, 10-cent, 20-cent, 50-cent, $1 and $2 coin. So we don't have a quarter. We've just got a 20, which I guess is a fifth of $1. But no one uses cash, and no one really uses the 5 or 10 cent piece maybe you'd use a 20-cent piece for like a coffee if you had spare change around. But yeah, we really don't like use coins that much. 20th Century Boy will be right back. Excuse this interruption, everybody. Patreon.com/Radio Mike is the best way for you to support this show and support me. And you don't go home empty-handed. You get a bunch of bonus content, including the TCB Overflow, which is an extra 15 to 20 minutes each week. If you get to the end of this podcast and you're like, oh, I'd really like to continue listening to Mike for a bit. I wasn't ready for that pod to be over. I love Mike's content. Well, there's a bit more up on Patreon right now. This week on the TCB Overflow, on request of listener Patreon Lunchtime, I'm going to be talking about the economics of radio and where I think radio is going to be heading in the next few years. I obviously started my career in radio and I love the format, but it's an interesting time for the media landscape. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that over on the Overflow. Jump on at patreon.com/Radio Mike for as little as $1 a month. Guys, this is the best way for you to support the show if you like it, and it does go a long way. We are currently on 69 patrons and I would love to see it get to 70 and even 80 coming up soon. So please consider donating. Consider getting in touch. And if you want to make a one-off donation, it's paypal.me/itsradiomike. Also, if you're listening to this on the Spotify app right now, can you please give it a 5-star review on the Spotify homepage for this podcast? Thanks, guys. Let's get back to the pod.
Hey y'all, it's your boy Will Smith, and when I'm not smacking Chris Rock in the face, I love Radio Mike's podcast. Love you, Mike.
Continuing on, a lot about tech this week. I noticed that Netflix is bringing out a new ad-free alternative to ad-not-free alternative to their service. There is now a Netflix service where you can pay like $6 a month and you get standard definition content and ads in the TV shows and movies you're watching. My first response to this is, why would anyone in their right mind ever sign up to this? Why on earth would you pay money to watch Netflix with ads? That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard in my life. Netflix, get your head out of your ass. You've got better ideas from that. And I have been a vigilant person on this podcast talking about how I'm completely over streaming services and how I'm completely done with them. They fucked it for themselves. They've dug themselves this hole and now they're trying to claw their way out, dig back up. Netflix leading the charge of just being like, oh my God, Disney Plus has better content than us. Everyone has better content than us now. Now we're losing subscribers rapidly. Squid Game was a hit, but we can't rely on Squid Game. Now we need to do something. Let's make them pay less money, but for ads. People will love that. No, they won't. And it's 2022. No one wants to watch standard definition content on their big TVs. It's not 2008 where only some people have a flat screen TV, a HD TV. We all have HD TVs. There is no one in this country or this planet. Well, okay. There is not. Okay. I should be careful how I phrase this. Most people in developed nations don't have box TVs anymore. We have big TVs. Why would I want to watch in standard definition? This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen Netflix do. And this is just a perfect reason for you to just cancel your Netflix account. If they think that they can make you pay $6 or $7 a month to watch ads in front of your Netflix TV shows, that's ludicrous. Ludicrous. Ridiculous on all fronts. And the idea that Netflix put it out there into the world is like this is destined to fail. Anyone with half a brain can already see that this is destined to fail. Even if you want to save cash, why would you try and save cash but have ads? Ridiculous. Netflix, I'm worried about you, man. But to be honest, I don't care about you at all, so it doesn't matter. Interested to see how that develops. Last week on the show, I talked about how I actually got a bit roasted for this. I talked about how the word paranoia, I always thought it was paranoria, Noria, instead of N-O-I-A. I always just thought it was Paranoria. And I don't know why. And I put this out as a clip and I thought it would go massive. I thought everyone would have the same view as me, but pretty much no one did. Everyone was ripping into me. DJ Marky Mark, radio DJ Marky Mark. He said, I felt like I was having a brain aneurysm during the Paranoia bit in the pod. I've never thought that it had another R in it, and it sounds super funny after the I was really good at English quote earlier in the ep. I did say that. But I see why you could get it wrong. Don't worry, Radio Mike. We all have glaring blind spots. I do have a lot of blind spots. I got called out a lot on this pod a few years ago where I always pronounce the word haunt as haunt. I would always say haunt, like a haunted house. That became a thing on this pod for a while. Now I just try to avoid saying the word at all costs because everyone lashes out at me. Patrio Gannon bought. He said, I spaced out at the beginning of the pod and I snapped back in at the Paranoia bit. It didn't feel real. So everyone on the comments and stuff was ripping into me saying it was the dumbest thing ever. But a few people actually wrote in with plausible reasons as to why I might think that. And I think they're actually right. And it is very funny because last week on the show I also talked about Blink-182. And it is possible that Blink-182 and various other music may be the reason that I think this, that I think it's Paranoria. Someone actually messaged me and said, I think you just are listening to how Tom DeLonge from Blink-182 sings the word paranoia in their music. And take a listen. And I think that's from the song Aliens Exist by Blink-182, where he goes, nice to know ya, paranoia. And I think because it's nice to know ya, and then paranoia, like I think that, and it kind of, like, hear it again. I think I just thought it. And then there's another Blink-182 song called Dogs Eating Dogs. Similar kind of thing. Just take a listen. Play it one more time. Paranoia, paranoia, my paranoia. I think I just threw that, and then someone else commented, and I think this is the deal breaker. Someone else just commented, Flagpole Sitter by Harvey Danger. Take a listen. I genuinely think because of these three songs, because I'd never seen the words written down. That's the thing. I'd never seen the words written down. And I think because of just so, I feel like just through listening to this, you can maybe resonate with me, surely. What was Paranoia? Paranoia, everybody. I don't know. Anyway, I'm a bit embarrassed, guys, but yeah. I want to talk quickly here, and this is not a beat up piece. I've tried to be very neutral on this matter, but I want to talk about Meghan Markle. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are rolling your eyes, but the thing, this story just blew my mind. Meghan Markle, and again, totally neutral to her, don't care, couldn't care less about the royal family, have never seen her in anything, do not care. But I did see this story she put out. There's always a new Meghan Markle story, and this one really caught my attention. Because I guess one of her earliest gigs in entertainment was as one of the suitcase holders in the TV game show Deal or No Deal. We had a version in Australia. I assume it was an American concept at first. And there's basically 26 briefcases. And on the show, at least in the Australian version, I assume the same on the American version, there's 26 essentially models who hold the briefcases during the start of the show. And Meghan Markle's come out. And, Meghan Markle is a very sort of conventionally attractive woman, and I think she's very wealthy. She's a literal princess. She's married to a prince, and she's never happy. I live in my 1-bedroom apartment here in Richmond, Australia. I pay rent, and I go to work, and I'm pretty happy. Like, I've got a pretty happy life. I've got a good job. I'm happy. Meghan Markle never really happy. She put out this statement that she felt like when she was working on Deal or No Deal as one of the briefcase ladies, she was treated like a bimbo and wasn't respected for it. And I think we got to unpack this a little bit because it's been pretty controversial. Here's the thing from me on this. The first thing is, one, when you sign up to a show like Deal or No Deal, where your job is to look attractive and hold a briefcase, you kind of know what that job is, right? You know what you're doing. You're not there to be these models on the show. They don't even talk. You know, they're just there. Like, and this is a delicate area, and I'm open to discourse around it. But the thing that annoys me about it is, one, not everyone can do that job because you have to be a conventionally attractive woman to do it. But the other thing is that kind of annoys me about it, and maybe it's because I came from like my grandparents were immigrants and they couldn't speak English and they just had to work labouring jobs their whole life. Like they were uneducated, couldn't speak English, came to Australia, worked, you know, traded their time for money and did labouring jobs. And anyway, Meghan Markle probably got paid a lot of money. Not like tons of money, but like probably a good day rate to hold those briefcases. And she took that money and, you know, has made a lot of money since. There are people in this world whose job, who just spend their whole lives, their whole working lives doing hard labor and picking up heavy things and moving them and driving trucks at all hours of the day to do logistical work and all these other jobs that are like essential jobs, but like mindless jobs that aren't really fun or exciting or interesting, that a lot of everyday people just do those jobs to get by in their lives, to make money, to feed themselves, to feed their families, to pay their rent. And then I personally, I don't get offended, but I just feel like I always feel like when I see people like Meghan Markle complaining about, I had to hold the briefcases on Deal or No Deal and they treated me like a model. And admittedly, okay, models should be treated like the same as everyone else, of course. But the concept of that show is like the concept of that job is you hold the briefcase and you look pretty. If you don't want to do the job, quit the job. Go get another job where you feel like you're being valued for your intelligence, because the idea of that job is not that. I think a lot of people now, it's a really difficult balance, but it definitely annoyed me because I know how hard people like my grandparents worked in their lives to make a fraction of the money that Meghan Markle has. And, you know, it's just, I don't know. I just felt like it was, and admittedly, you know, I guess the retort to that could be, well, why are most game show hosts men? Men are predominantly game show hosts as far as I can see. And I agree with that. And I guess if you're a woman, there aren't as many opportunities to be a game show host. And why is that? And is that problematic? Yeah, probably. But at the same time, no one is forcing her to do this job. So to come out, whatever, like 15 years later and say, oh, it was terrible and I was treated like a bimbo and, you know, I was just this model on the show. It's like no one forced you to do it. And interesting quote from Whoopi Goldberg of all people, but she said, when you're a performer, you take the gig. Sometimes you're in a bozo suit, sometimes you got a big nose, and this is just the way it is. We're not journalists, we're actors, we're trying to get to another place. And I kind of resonate with that as well, because when I started in radio, my first paid radio gig was an overnights paneling job where I worked from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. every weeknight. And I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to trade my nights and sleep during the day and be alone in a radio station all night. I didn't want to do it. I didn't think it was fun. But I kind of knew that I had to get in the door and do some hard yards before I could do what I'm doing now. And if I didn't do that, I'm telling you, I wouldn't be where I am now. Sometimes you have to, Anyway, it's a complex issue, and I haven't even scratched the surface. So, if you're going to cancel me over what I'm saying, I get it. But I don't know. I think there's room for discourse around it. I just felt like I don't know. It really put me off the whole Meghan Markle thing. People in this world work very hard in very hard jobs, and then you're complaining about having to be a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal and stand there and smile and be a model. I don't know. It annoys me. Maybe it's just because of my upbringing and my family being immigrants to this country, but whatever. Couple more things before we wrap up the show today. I've noticed the 1975 are an indie rock band, and they put out a new album last week. I checked it out. It was really good. I don't listen to much of their music, but every time they put a new album out, I just listen to it once or twice just to be in the know. And I noticed this interesting thing about the 1975. Now, if you're a fan of the 1975, you already know this. I get it. I'm not a fan of them, so I'm just discovering this for the first time. You don't have to call me out on it. I get it. Because I'm listening to the album and I noticed the first track on their album is called The 1975. So the band is called The 1975, and the first track on the album, the new album, is called The 1975. The title of the song is the name of the band. A little bit confusing, but whatever. And it got me thinking, I wonder if there's many other bands who have done songs that are the name of the band as well. Thought that was interesting, did some research. But then I realized the 1975 starts every album, every single one of their albums starts with a song called The 1975. Why? I don't understand it. It feels a little bit self-indulgent. It's like I go out and buy a 1975 CD, and just in case I didn't know which band I was listening to, they make sure the first song of every album they have is called The 1975. It does raise into question various other issues. For example, and 1975 fans, this is where I need you to get on board and help me. Is it the same song every time, or are there various different songs on each 1975 album called The 1975? Is it a different song every time, or is it the same song? Now, I could just listen to them, but I can't be bothered. I would love for someone to comment and tell me. But I don't understand this. I guess it's just become a tradition for them to have every first track on every album is called The 1975. But I feel like it's a little bit unusual for a band to have a song named after the band. The 1975 by The 1975. And then especially for there to be multiple different versions of that track. Like, I'm listening to the 1975 by the 1975. Which 1975 by 1975? Are you talking about the 1975 from the third album, or the 1975 from the second album, or the 1975 from the fourth album? Personally, my favorite is the 1975 from the fifth album. But you can't go past the debut album, 1975. That was good as well. Do you know what I mean? I just find it a little bit confusing. How do you differentiate between the different 1975s from the band The 1975? Very confusing. If someone could shed a light on it. I did a bit of research. This is the newest version of the song The 1975 from their newest album.
Sorry if you're living in 17, and sorry if you're living in 17.
Would love, if people have any, for you to send in any bands you know that have songs named after the band. My research, I've only found two more. Green Day, punk rock band, actually had a song called Green Day. It's on their first album. They're like, this is back when they were just like a very young high school punk band. It's called Green Day. The name Green Day, as in the band Green Day's name, actually comes from, if you didn't know, a day spent smoking marijuana. The whole name Green Day is literally just a tribute to the drug marijuana. And before they were Green Day, they were actually called Sweet Children. They changed their name from Sweet Children to Green Day because they spent most of their teenage and high school and early 20s smoking a lot of weed. So they were literally having what they would call Green Days. So they decided to call their band Green Day. Sometimes band name origins are really interesting when you think about it like that, because this Green Day became a very big rock band around the world, and the name of the band, it would totally go over kids' heads, but the name of the band is literally a tribute to their favorite drug. I love that. I don't know why I love that, but it's very funny. But yeah, they had a song called Green Day, which literally describes having a green day. It is kind of funny though, because Green Day in the mid 2000s started putting out albums like American Idiot, which were these very politically motivated albums, like attacking the American government and talking about post 9/11 America. And then when you think about the fact that the name Green Day literally just refers to a day of smoking up weed, it becomes quite funny to know that they were like, yeah, fuck you, Mr. President. And then they're like, yeah, just having a joint. Anyway, the other one I found was by Australian artist Amy Shark. In her second album, I think it's called Cry Forever, the last song on that album is called Amy Shark. And it's a reflection on how she thinks people from her past are going to reach out to her and try to treat her better now that she's Amy Shark, now that she's famous, essentially.
Please just don't start now that I'm Amy Shark.
So it is interesting to think about why artists write songs based on their band name. I'd love some clarity around the 1975. The Green Day one is literally them just describing how it feels to smoke weed. It's a very fun punk song. And then Amy Shark's is a bit more deep than that. But yeah. Okay. Next up, we got to do an update on this. Christmas sweater giveaway. Oh yeah. We're giving away your Christmas sweater from Typo. Yeah, it's the Christmas sweater giveaway. At the end of the year, we will be giving away a Typo Christmas sweater. Rewind a little bit. Typo, I'm not going to tell this whole story. Basically, we've come by a $100 gift voucher from Typo. I'm going to use it to buy a Christmas sweater for myself and a Christmas sweater for the show. And at the end of the year, someone is going to win the Christmas sweater. Great way to give back to the listeners. Now, over on Patreon, on the Pat and Mike show, where Pat and I, the producer of this show, talk a bit more, we discussed how you can win the Christmas sweater. And what we've decided, and this feels like good for both your chance to win and for the show. Basically, anybody who is on the Patreon from now until the draw goes in the draw to win the Christmas sweater. So if you're not on the Patreon, but you want a chance to be in this raffle, to be in this Christmas sweater giveaway, jump on the Patreon. This isn't a plug. It's just jump on the Patreon for any money you want. You can literally jump on for $1 to be in the running. You can jump on for just 2 months till the end of the year and then jump off if you just want to be in the run for the sweater. That's completely fine. It's just to drive a little bit more money to the Patreon for this giveaway. If you're on the Patreon, you have a chance to win. You literally can jump on and jump off again. But basically, if you're in the Patreon on the day of the draw, you go into the running. If you can stick around, that'd also be great. But yeah, so if you want to be in the running, it's a cool Typo Christmas sweater. I'll get it to your size if you win and ship it out to you at my cost. So yeah, if you want to have a chance of winning the Christmas sweater, we'll probably pull it live on the show and just jump in the Patreon. That is your chance to win the Christmas sweater. We're really looking forward to the first podcast giveaway, I think, so it should be really fun. Okay, sorry about that. Before we go into the plug, let us finish this week's show by doing one of these bad boys. It's Radio Mike's Songs You Forgot Existed. Oh, I forgot about that song. We have a listener submitted song you forgot existed this week, and it comes in from our listener, Radio Sarah. Welcome to the Radio Family, Radio Sarah. Thank you for submitting this. You can submit a song you forgot existed at any time. Lots of people do. So hoping to get to them all ASAP. She sent me a message on Instagram. I have a song you forgot existed. I have a song you forgot existed moment that happened organically to me. I never thought the day would come and just thought I was above the game and remember/still listen to every song I ever heard, but I was wrong. I hope it isn't too niche, but the song is, and I'm not going to say because I'll reveal it in the segment. I truly did not remember this song existed, and once I heard it, a deep memory was sparked. Now, again, the whole conceit of this segment is you hear the song and you're like, oh, I have not thought about that. I've not heard that song or thought about that song in such a long time. I forgot that song existed. So Sarah's submitted this song. Now, for me, personally, I don't think I forgot this song existed. For me, I think this is one where I was like, oh no, like I hear that song from time to time on the radio. I didn't forget it existed. This is just me. For you, it might be different. And that's the sort of analysis you want to be doing in your mind when you hear the song. So let's take a listen to the song that Sarah has sent in for songs you forgot existed. And that song is this. All right, everybody, it's another edition of Songs You Forgot Existed. Feel free to send in your own, just like this listener Sarah did. This is a song that Sarah thinks you forgot existed. 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 0.
Walking around on broken leg. Well, I can't get you out of my head. Well, I can't get you out of my head. You don't want to know me.
It's Broken Leg by Blue Juice. Let us know if you forgot that this song existed. Yeah, Broken Leg by Blue Juice. Yeah, I think that for me, that one, I hear that on the radio a bit on like Gold FM here in Melbourne where they play like classic music. But yeah, let us know on Instagram or wherever you like to contribute and get in touch with the show. Let me know. And let's finish up with one of these bad boys. The plug. It is time to do the plug where I just plug everything I would like you to check out this week. Bit of stuff going on this week. Hey, the first thing, as always, is, as I've just done, the Patreon, patreon.com/RadioMike. Thank you. 69 people on the Patreon is an amazing feat that I'm really, really stunned by. I mean, we started the Patreon, I can't even remember when we started it, but to be on 69 people supporting me is huge. So thank you so much, guys. Additionally, I want to plug the Patreon exclusive shows, The Overflow, which goes up at the same time as this podcast every week, which is just an extra 20 minutes. Get to the end of the pod, want a bit more, jump on The Overflow. The Pat and Mike Show, huge shout out to producer Pat, who is just flourished on the Pat and Mike Show every week. This week on the Pat and Mike, last week on the Pat and Mike Show, it comes out every Friday, so it's a weekly show with me and Pat. We do a deep dive onto something that I've talked about on this show. We get Pat's thoughts on it. We have a discussion around it. And then Pat usually brings something, and there's a bit more happening as well. So this week we actually talked a little bit more about Gumball-orama, which is coming up at the end of the year as well. Yeah. I think you should be there on the day to film it and just be there, because it would be really funny if we got shut down or if security tried to kick us out. Because like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like, the gumball machine exchanges one gumball for 20 cents. There's no disclaimer on the gumball machine that is one gumball per person. So theoretically, I can have all the gumballs.
Yeah, there's tons of potential.
As well as that, so I'd love for you to get those shows over on the Patreon. They're so much fun. The Patreon's growing. The content's great there. There is a lot of content on the Patreon now, and it's just an appendage to this show and My World. So if you like My World, not the album by Justin Bieber, My World 2.0, but if you like My World, Radio Mike's World, then please jump on the Patreon, get some more content. Harry Potter and the Boys continues. The legendarily hilarious Jackie Hutton joined me this week for a chapter called Hagrid, Harry and Neville's Sexy Adventure for Mates. And Jackie at the moment actually is sporting a Draco Malfoy-esque hairstyle, so I spoke to her about that. Your hair at the moment, did you want to explain to the listeners what's going on there?
I was like, I need to like cut some like little face framing bits here. They were uneven, so they kept getting shorter. And then eventually I ended up like this, where I look kind of just like Malfoy from the front.
You look like Malfoy from the third movie, and he has that like straight fringe.
Yes.
The original Malfoy had the slicked back, sort of waxed back hair. Yeah, like that. Do people treat you differently that you look like Malfoy? Are they?
I can tell people are thinking it, and then when I say it, they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, that was rude. You were just going to let me live like this without knowing?
Can you do a Malfoy impression?
My father will be hearing about this, Potter.
Hilarious episode, and Harry Potter and the Boys is really taking off. There seems to be a market of women aged like 18 to 34 that don't listen to a lot of my other stuff, but they just love Harry Potter and cheeky boy Mike. So yeah, it's really growing, and I'd, again, love for you to check it out. One announcement is that I have been putting up compilations of my time on 3AW afternoons with DD Dunleavy. Without saying too much, I am no longer allowed to put them online, so I will not be putting up any more compilations of that. So you have to catch me live on Thursdays at 1:45 p.m. on 3AW afternoons, Melbourne Daylight Savings Time. But I did want to just share this. I made the daily promo. So with radio shows, they cut daily promos that run on the station, throughout the day to promote the show. And I made the daily promo. So just take a listen to this. I think it's great that this was running on radio around Melbourne and people would have heard it.
Afternoons with DD.
What's your favourite Blink-182 song, DD? I think the listeners really want to know.
Gosh, it's such an extensive list, Michael. How do I choose one from...
Name a few then.
12 till 3 weekdays.
I've had a gut full of my parents, that song.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the right tone. It's a lot of just raspy American
I figured it might be. All the Small Things, how's that? Knew one of their songs.
Well, that was the one we just played.
I know.
Name one we didn't just play.
On 3AW 693.
I don't know why I love that so much, that was the promo moment of the show for that day. Finally, please rate this show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify 5 stars. We do accept 4. We don't accept 3 or under. If you are on Apple Podcasts, leave a written review. I love seeing them. They make my day. It also helps push you up the charts and stuff. But yeah, Spotify, give us a 5-star review and such. And yeah, from there, that's pretty much it for the week. I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. My name's been Radio Mike, and this has been The Inside of My Mind. I'll catch you later. The podcast is over. That sucks so much. But it doesn't have to, because if you are like that guy, whoever was just talking, it definitely wasn't me. If you are like that guy and you would like to continue listening to me, jump on the Patreon right now, patreon.com/Radio Mike. We need you, man. We need you. Yes, I'm talking specifically to you. We need you on the Patreon. Help us out, man. Come on, man. But seriously, patreon.com/Radio Mike. The overflow is there now, and a Pat and Mike episode will be coming out on Friday. So get twice as much Radio Mike in your life. I know, God, I can bloody barely live with half of myself, but I'm sure you guys wouldn't mind 2 times me. So yeah, jump on. See you there. This podcast was a Radio Mike original production. Head to radiomike.com.au to check out all our other content, stay up to date at radio.mike on Instagram, and get in touch, radiomikepod@gmail.com.